morning, everybody, and welcome to the Youth Pledge for Employers Careers Fair. And we're absolutely delighted to have John and Rebecca from Saxon Air here today talking to us about their organisation. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for coming along.
Thank you for having us.
Absolute pleasure. Now, I think that you've got a presentation that you want to share, or I'm happy to share it for you, whichever way around you want to do it.
Yes, I will attempt to share it now. Hopefully.
Brilliant.
So, as you mentioned, we are Saxon Air. So, a little bit about us for anyone who's not aware. We are a private aviation company. So that's jet and helicopter charter. So we're next to Norwich Airport, and we fly all of the unchartered. Is that how you?
General aviation is basically what we operate within. So it's anybody who wants to fly an aircraft that is willing to pay for it and have it for themselves.
So we own and manage aircraft, both helicopters and jets. And we also handle any aircraft coming into the facility that doesn't go through Norwich Airport. And in the building, we have an offshore facility, which is the oil and gas industry helicopters that fly from Saxon Air. And quite a few of those happen each day. So we're quite busy on that side as well. So some different roles that are available at Saxon Air. So it's not just crew, although that is obviously a big part of our industry and Saxon Air. So there's pilots and cabin crew. We also have a team of operations officers which handle both the booking of the aircraft and aircraft.
So slots, flight plans, all of that kind of stuff. So in order to keep that crew in the aircraft in the air, you have a whole set of back office staff that do an awful lot of stuff in the background to make sure that the airports are ready to accept us. Flight plans are in at the right levels, catering is ordered for the customers, or any other special requests that they might have. So that's what the operations officers do in the background.
And flight planning, did you mention that?
Flight planning
as well. So we also have ground handling agents. So they deal with everything on the ground, so moving aircraft, checking in our clients, and offshore industry handling. They also do baggage handling and everything related to kind of manual handling side of the operation. So we also have the sales department who give quotes and deal with all the sales side of booking the aircraft.
They're pretty important to our operation because if they don't sell anything, we've got nothing to fly. So you can imagine that job's quite, well, there's a lot of pressure on it to make sure that we sell as many hours on our aircraft as we possibly can, which then in turn makes everybody else nice and busy.
Definitely. So next we have what we call our CAMO team. So that's Continuing Airworthiness Management Operations.
Well done.
And that's basically the maintenance department. So although we don't do our own maintenance in-house at Saxon Air, we need a whole team of people to book in the maintenance for outside companies to do. And that's a really busy department as well. So that's regular, the aircraft have regular maintenance. We have our HR team, which is essential for all businesses. Our accountancy team, sustainability team, and also safety, which is obviously our number one priority in this industry.
Yeah, so if we touch on probably the most important one to this call really is the flight support officer's role, which is basically the gateway into Saxon Air, if you like. So whilst we've talked about all the other roles that there are, such as crewing and that kind of stuff, generally, obviously for crewing, you need quite a lot of experience in terms of flying hours to be able to fly a commercial jet. But if you want to get your foot into aviation, flight support is a really good way to do that. In terms of qualifications, we don't require an awful lot, to be fair. We want a good standard of English and maths, but the rest of it we'll give you. So as Rebecca touched on earlier, we talk about marshalling, baggage handling and check-in. There's a whole raft of jobs, and it's very varied from each day. No 2 days are the same. The core of our work is based around the offshore industry. So we do anything between 10 to 20 flights a day offshore. We have a team of 3 people at any one time, with some extra backup from myself and my colleagues if we need extra staff down there. So we're very much a small operation, very hands-on. So the management team will get involved in that. But in terms of the flight support role, we're going to train you to tow aircraft, marshal aircraft. We give you a full qualification for offshore check-in, which is called Vantage. And then along with that, obviously, we usually look with some kind of MVQ to support that as well, which we've been doing quite a lot of in recent months. So you can come straight from school, pretty much 18, straight into us, and we'll give you what you need. And then really, once you're into the company, then the world's your oyster, really, because you can then move into the ops team, which I now manage upstairs, which we do all the flight planning stuff, or into the camo role, which is an engineering function, but very much, you know, around logistics and making sure that aircraft are booked in on time for their maintenance, keeping the owners of the aircraft happy. To accounts if you want. So once you're in the door, you're in the door, really, and there's a lot more there available to you. We give you a good grounding in qualifications for you to be able to move to other airlines if that's what you want to do.
So the flight support officer role specifically is shift work. So they start quite early in the morning, 5 or 6 o'clock.
5:15.
And then the early shift would finish around lunchtime, and then the next shift will take over and work until the evening. So it's not a 9 to 5, whereas the rest of the roles kind of are more of a 9 to 5 type role. But as John said, the flight support officer's role is really varied. And
yeah, I think you have to look at that from 1 minute you could be checking in a guy to go offshore, and the very next you could be leaping off the check-in desks to meet a VIP passenger to see them through our VIP lounge, and then you could be out to start the aircraft up and marshal it away. So you get to see the whole function.
So what we look for in future employees is really just an individual that meets our company values, really, and somebody that's got a passion for aviation or travel. But our company values are based around the word inspire, and that breaks down to sustainability, inclusivity, safety, respect, innovation, integrity, and excellence. And that's kind of something that we all try and display every day in our working days and how we present ourselves.
Yeah, we refer back to our values quite often. So, you know, if there is any kind of disagreement or conflict between staff, we often look back and look at how we actually achieved those values. And if we didn't, that's a very good sort of starting point to have a conversation with people about.
Yeah. So I think that's everything from us, unless there's any questions.
Oh, that was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. That was so useful to understand sort of like the different roles that exist in your organisation, but also how even in the one job, like the flight support officer, that might be an entry point for people, that there's so many different things that you might actually do as part of that. You know, like you say, 1 minute on the VIP lounge, next minute doing offshore. Are just absolutely fascinating. What an interesting job to start with. Can you tell us a bit, I don't know, sort of take it in turns, perhaps like how you guys got into where you are and what you've done, your career journeys?
Yeah, so I suppose I'm a good example in a way. I mean, I've been in aviation, well, far too many years. I won't say how many years. But I came to Saxon Air when we started, so 11 years ago.
Right.
I started as a flight support officer, the same as everybody else, even though I had a lot of background in management and that kind of stuff within aviation. And I've worked my way through the company, and I'm now operations director. So
Wow.
that, in essence, that kind of says that gives you an idea of what you can do.
Yeah.
An awful lot of my senior team now are people that started in flight support. So I've got Natalie, who actually manages the operations team. She started as a flight support officer. She came from a hospitality background. She came from catering before that.
Wow. And what sort of before we go on to you, Rebecca, what sort of benefit do you think that has given you working your way up like that?
Oh, well, I guess I'm old-fashioned in a way. I think it's massive. I think you have a very good understanding of the business.
Yeah.
You have empathy with your staff, because and obviously you have to see that from both sides, because you are in the middle where you've got to achieve company objectives, but you also understand what those guys have got to do every day. And that does mean that actually I can just jump in as well and help them. So I'm not stuck behind a desk. I can go out there and marshal an aeroplane. Or this morning I was loading a helicopter. So,
wow.
So
casually loading a helicopter before coming on.
Yeah, as you do. So for me, I think that's massively important. yes, you can, as long as you're a good manager, if you like, with your staff, that it's not essential, but I just think it helps you.
Yeah. No, that's really useful to understand. What about you, Rebecca? What's your sort of journey been like to this point?
I started at Saxon Air as an administrative assistant,
Right.
and I ended up being a PA to the CEO. And now I am managing wellbeing and sustainability.
Wow.
Alongside doing this job, I'm actually doing a degree with the OU in psychology. So, and this job has allowed me to do that alongside, have time to actually be able to study as well and use it in my role. So it's been really good, actually. Yeah, and plus, since getting into aviation, which wasn't something I expected to do, I'm hooked.
That's it.
Once you come here, you just it's a great
Love
atmosphere. Yeah, exactly. So
oh, that is so interesting. Rebecca, would you talk us through like a typical working day in the life of Rebecca Hill?
yeah. So it's varied as well. I think a lot of our jobs are varied. So at the moment I monitor all of our carbon emissions.
Right.
So from every flight, we work out how many emissions we produce, and then we offset for those. So it's doing things like talking to our offsetting partners for tree planting, coming up with staff initiatives. We have an employee assistance programme, and we do regular like wellbeing days and functions.
Workshops.
Yeah, workshops, which can be anything really, that we just kind of go with the flow. And a lot of administrative kind of duties as well. But we all work pretty closely together, even though we've obviously been working from home a lot recently, and we all kind of help each other out in our different roles, which is nice. So it is varied.
I think that's the benefit, I think, of a small company. I think
Yeah.
that, you know, we're not, in terms of airlines, we're not massive. So that means that we've all got experience within each other's roles to a degree, so we're able to chip in and help each other.
And John, obviously, tell us a bit about a sort of a day in the life of John in terms of your job. Sounds like pretty varied as well.
Oh my God, where do you want to start? Well, today's a really good example. So I oversee flight support plus operations and the facility, and so for today, is from an example point of view, France have just closed their borders as of Saturday evening. We've got 3 flights next week.
Okay.
So now we have to see whether we can do them or whether we can't. So my colleague Stuart is on the phone at the moment trying to find out what the rules are going to be. And if we can't, the flights will either get cancelled or we'll subcharter to another operator that may allow us to go somewhere else. So that's a whole day's work now trying to redo all the flights.
So you've got to be really responsive in your job.
You've got to be very switched on at what the news is saying as well, because sometimes the news gets it before you do, in terms of, particularly if you take the last year with COVID and the way that the rules changed from 1 minute to the next. If you ring up and book an aircraft with it, you're relying that we know all of the rules. So we're advising you every 5 seconds about what the changes are, what you need to have ready before you go.
Oh yeah, I bet you do. And that probably strikes me that probably one of the sort of characteristics or the soft skills that you need for your job is that ability to problem solve. When you think about sort of your roles, or what do you think are like those sort of top 3 kind of soft skills or characteristics that you need people to have?
But I think you touched on it in a way there. In Saxon Air's policy has always been, ever since I've been here, we say yes, and then we'll work out how we're going to do it afterwards.
Yeah, that's a great philosophy.
Well, being blunt, that's what it has to be in
after safety, of course.
Absolutely, but within private aviation, your customer wants the earth, and so if you say no, he'll go to somewhere else, or she'll go to somebody else. So you find a way to make it work. So those skills of finding that solution and not panicking, and working as a team. So working as a team, problem solving, all of those kind of things are the sort of things that we want. Flexibility. Our days aren't, we don't work 9 to 5. I mean, the guys in the office, strictly speaking, are 9 to 5. We don't leave at 5. If we've got a problem, we'll be here till whenever it is to fix it.
Yeah. And I guess like you must need that in your staff as well, like that sort of flexibility in terms of people joining. And sort of thinking about your actual recruitment process, what sort of things, firstly, could we think about perhaps what you might look for on an application from a young person, or somebody sort of applying to an entry level position, and then think about kind of what you look for at interview?
Yeah, I suppose it depends what kind of role it is. So each manager really kind of does their own recruitment.
Yeah.
And like John said, it's some of the roles are more qualification kind of they require some qualification, and
Yeah.
others don't.
Yeah,
really.
so I'll look for basic English, basic maths skills, but then I'm really more interested in about what they've done before. I hate these cliches on CVs that, you know, I'm a forward-thinking blah 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 person, because they tend to be just. But being honest, if you get 100 CVs
That all say everybody's forward
they all
thinking.
say that, you know, they're all cut and paste. I'm really interested in what you've done before. If you've changed jobs lots and lots, and probably it's going to make me think a little bit more carefully about it, because I want somebody who's going to be here for the long haul, hopefully, and work their way through the company.
Yeah.
So hospitality is always good for us because it's that customer service type of skills they've had before.
Right.
But we don't rule out anybody, to be fair.
I think it's like you said, once you have somebody in for an interview, it's just if somebody seems like they would be able to get on in this kind of environment, we're all quite friendly and quite like a family environment, really. That sounds a bit cliche, but you know,
that's lovely.
Yeah.
The most important thing from anybody, and that's very difficult to get that across in a CV, but do you feel as passionately about aviation as we do? If you walk in the door and you go, wow, when you, I always still remember the first day I walked in this facility, and I walked in that front door and I just thought that the building looks impressive for starters, and you think, wow. And then you see the aeroplanes, and I still get that now. And I've been in aviation for years.
That's fantastic.
We can see the runway just outside our office window, so we're really lucky. We're right in a prime position.
Oh,
I don't
wow,
know if I'll show you on the camera. I'll try. Can you see that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is fantastic. That's absolutely brilliant. What an inspiring place to be. So I guess then from that sort of CV perspective, like you say, maybe like the basic English and maths, but really getting over like the skills that you might have got from other workplaces like hospitality or like those customer service skills as well. And also that passion for aviation.
Yeah, that's what we can see.
And then they're the sorts of things I guess that you're looking for at interview as well.
Well, you dig into those a bit further, then, particularly, you know, you can see in somebody's face actually if you interview somebody and they feel passionately about it, you know, they're overawed by the build and all that kind of stuff, and that's the sort of thing you want to see.
Yeah. Oh, I bet.
It's a special place to be, and we're lucky. I every day when we look after the Red Arrows once a year, I think how lucky I am.
I know.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Is it also, I guess, sort of having celebrity customers, I guess you probably have to make sure that people aren't too, I don't know, that people are calm about that, I guess, as well.
Well, calm about it. Not having your photograph taken is a big thing. Social media is massive for us. We just don't, you know, we post about ourselves on social media in terms of what the organisation does, but we never post about our customers. You know, they are looking for privacy.
Yeah. I was just going to say, so then there's almost that extra element to that working environment, isn't there? That, you know, that of people's privacy and respecting that. Yeah. Oh, that is that's so interesting. And in terms of, it seems that people have got like the sorts of like opportunities for progression through into the different roles that you said about. So I was making notes while you were talking. I was just looking back at my notes. And so what sort of skills, say somebody wanted to go down a more sort of engineering pathway, what sort of training might they undertake to go into that?
Generally, people
Like the logistics, sort of the logistics engineering side.
Certainly on the engineering side, people that generally come into that side have got some kind of engineering background previous to come into a role, the sort of roles that we would allow for.
So like a kind of an engineering degree or along kind of lines, although it wouldn't actually be, like we said, it's not a hands-on role. It still requires that kind of knowledge and background.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful to understand sort of what those different levels.
No, and like the Aviation Academy are doing and engineering apprenticeships and that kind of stuff. So that if you want to, that would be the place to get your foot in the door if you want to get into engineering to start with.
Yeah, so to sort of go through that route. No, that's really helpful, I think, for local people to understand sort of the different routes in. That's been absolutely brilliant. And just as we sort of come to wrap up, I just wondered, we've been asking sort of everybody this. And John, I'll sort of start with you. If you were to go back and speak to your younger self, starting on your career journey, what advice would you give yourself? And then Rebecca, I'll ask you the same thing.
Oh wow, that's a toughie, that is, isn't it?
It is a toughie.
That's a difficult one. Probably more of the same of what I'm doing now, really, because I think, you know, my career is I've achieved the things I wanted to achieve and worked my way. Well, probably not be quite so hot-headed. I'm quite well known for having an opinion, and I suppose in my early career probably should have stifled that a little bit more. It's not so bad as I've got further up the chain, but yeah, I think
kind
probably,
of the management of that initially.
yeah, an early management of that probably would have been the thing, I would say. Yeah.
Oh, that's really helpful. And what about you, Rebecca? What?
I think I'd definitely say, so when I left school, I didn't go to college. I just left for GCSEs because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I ended up going to a few different jobs. But I did kind of restrict myself, thinking that I couldn't go for certain roles because I didn't have the qualifications I thought. But I would just say that it's sometimes more about your personality and the company that you want to work for. If you're quite aligned, then it doesn't necessarily matter that you didn't get the qualification that you wanted to. If you find the industry that I feel like you're supposed to work in, and you work hard, and then you don't need to limit yourself. You can work your way up in a place.
That is great. Oh, well, listen, that's a brilliant note to end on. Thank you so much, both of you, for your time today. That's just been so interesting to hear all about what you do. That's been absolutely fascinating.